Hi there. Could you tell us a bit about what this protest is about today?
Well, it's an anti-war protest, pure and simple. Basically, once again, we're bombing. The British government has embarked on another campaign of bombing. After the bombing of Iraq in '91, the bombing of Serbia, the bombing of Iraq, the bombing of Afghanistan, all of those two wars are still going on. Those countries are still being bombed. Now we've started another war. We've been bombing Libya for 6 months. So basically it's an anti-war protest. It's also a protest against NATO, which has really become a menace to world peace and we think should be disbanded. NATO is now is effectively engaged in destroying Libya. It's engaged in bombing the cities of Libya, of destroying the infrastructure of the country, the water, the electricity, bombing food supplies, bombing food depots, bombing camels, bombing cities. They're now bombing, at the moment they're bombing Bani Walid and Sirte, claiming that these are, the last holdouts of Gaddafi. I mean, the whole thing is completely illegal. The whole thing is a setup. There is no democratic movement in Libya. This is something that NATO and the NATO allies and some forces inside Libya had planned for some time. So it's a kind of takeover of the country. It's not going very well, and NATO are using increasingly terroristic tactics. Recently, the town of Tawerga was destroyed by NATO, and 10,000, it has simply been emptied. The town of Tawerga no longer exists, as one of the rebels put it. Tawerga no longer exists. The people have been cleared out, they've been bombed out. Most of them are black Libyans. A third of the Libyan people are black. Libya is an African country, but not anymore, according to NATO. They don't like the fact that Gaddafi was a pan-African leader, that he was using the oil wealth of his country to promote the welfare of his people and of the African people. So that's why we're here, basically. We think we want these war crimes stopped. We want the British government to stop the bombing, to stop its involvement in the bombing, and we want the disbanding of the NATO organisation.
Do you think there's a strong feeling about this in Glasgow and the UK, or much knowledge about it?
Well, we've had a very positive response in the street. A number of people have just come off the street to support the protest, and yeah, I think people are sick of bombing. I mean, why is this going on? And why are we always at the heart of it? Why is it always the British government and the Americans who are at the heart of this? I mean, we are warmongers, and this has to stop.
This is the second time I've been here, the second Thursday late afternoon I've been here in the centre of Glasgow, just to show I really can't bear it that the country that is supposed to represent me keeps sending weapons and soldiers and interfering in other people's countries endlessly, war upon war upon war. And it looks like they want to keep going. And every time there's this sort of bogeyman, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden and so on, and then he has to be killed in a lot of news, and then the next bogeyman pops up. This time it's Gaddafi. I mean, none of these people are admirable, but neither are NATO. I don't want it done in my name any longer. I'm standing here because of that.
Do you think that there's a danger this may escalate into something worse, even a World War III scenario? I mean, they're talking about attacking Syria as well now.
I think that's always a risk. I mean, they're sending drones across Pakistan as well at the moment, which is the most disgusting, cowardly way of killing civilians I can imagine, with no risk whatsoever to the people who do it. I think when you play the war game, it can escalate and turn into something even worse at any time. That's the nature of war.
Thank you.
I was walking along the street last Thursday and I saw a group of protesters who were holding signs which said no more bombing and were clearly anti-war protesters. And I'm actually in Glasgow for a month doing a project at the CCA with a collaborator, and we're trying to think through some of the relationships between politics and art. And one of the things we've been trying to think about is to do with how to protest creatively and how to get people who might not usually get involved or think through politics. And so we've come along today to find more about the cause and to take part.
Thanks very much. What are your views on the fact that we're now involved in another bombing campaign?
Well, disappointed. I'm disappointed because, well, I felt a bit kind of carried away at the beginning by all the rhetoric about
the revolutions in Egypt and such like,
and acting more like a facilitator than a dominator. But it's sadly that's shifted, and it's just the same story again. It seems to be. Shouldn't have been taken in by David Cameron.
No.
I don't normally trust a word that comes out of his mouth. So I don't know. I think it was the support of the Arab League that I thought, oh, maybe actually this is something. Maybe this is in some way more responsible than other interventions.
Then NATO came in. And that was the rest is history.
Yeah.
Thank you. Would you like to say a few words about the protest here and why you're here?
Well, we're trying to gather here every week at this time. It's a good time, rush hour, to spread the word about what's happening in Libya. There's been a bit of nonsense about something in my just the time that there's bankruptcy and debt in Europe and in Britain especially. Britain, France and the United States are lashing out. A country of under 10 million people, it's quite intolerable that bombing should be taking place coming from the leading countries in the world. It's imperialism basically, and they're trying to get a foothold in North Africa, I believe. Even in Sarkozy's election campaign they were talking about a Mediterranean Union, which actually brought in Israel. So they needed a pacified
They've been speaking
Libya.
about this for a long time.
That's right. So this is it coming to pass now, and it's appalling that just today Cameron and Sarkozy are actually in Libya.
With hundreds of their own security guards with them, looking very, very nervous.
So that's why it's basically their own rebels that are wreaking havoc. You know, the black African population of Libya has had it in the neck from these people.
I see that these Al-Qaeda people in Tripoli now reject the Transitional National Council, so really nothing is working out for NATO.
Yeah, it's been
they can't install a government.
As far as I can see, there's been a long kind of relationship between the United States, Britain and the people that are called Al-Qaeda. They both use each other, and they end up being used by imperialism to carry out these kind of foul deeds, I would say. And you saw it in Kosovo.
Exactly. This is something I think British people have to know about, and quite likely don't know
That's
about.
why we're really here on this Russia protest, to bring it to people's attention that Britain is meddling in Africa. It's got the help of Al-Qaeda and all the rest of it to destabilise a sovereign country. No business doing that.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
What do you think about this sign?
Well, I think that sign is probably the most significant sign, placard, poster that you have here today, because it says this is not what you think. But in actual fact, maybe it should have said this is what you will think, because generally speaking, as far as most of the foreign adventures that Britain and other NATO countries are concerned in the media generally, people are told what to think. It's expressed that there is free expression, however, that is often found wanting, because people who examine things in a way and ask questions where it's going to take more than 10 seconds, then the media really generally doesn't want to know.
So you feel strongly about this protest today and the cause of this protest?
I think this is a good protest because it is encouraging people simply to think, and too often it's a case of going with the flow.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we're really hoping to do is, by initiating protests here, encourage people elsewhere to set up a protest, which is really dead easy. All you need is a few placards, maybe a leaflet, collect some contacts. I mean, I think generally it's quite good fun. There's a positive response from people. People are anti-war. They're not in sympathy with this whole ethos of bombing and destruction. So I would appeal for people everywhere, wherever they're living, to try and set up something locally, in whatever way they like, but try and get some kind of protest going. I think that's important.
Are you planning to do this every week?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be, it's picking up a bit. This week's better than last week. There seems to be plenty of interest from the public, so I think we'll keep it going. I think it'll take a few more protests probably to get NATO disbanded, but you have to start somewhere. So
you're going to keep going.
We're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. Yeah.